Hey, and welcome back to Running the Reader. For today's video, we are going to be talking about some spooky, Halloween-y type horror, thriller-ish kind of books that are perfect for kind of this Halloween October season. So we are just about halfway through October at this point. So we got 2 weeks-ish left until Halloween. So I figured I'd share some books that might be good for this end of spooky season before we move into November and are kind of in strictly fall vibes until we switch to more of like a Christmas or holiday kind of mood in December. So I have 4 books that I'm going to be talking about today. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is comparing each book to 2-ish movies that I think are comparable. So if you are a movie watcher for Halloween, but you want to try to give some books, some reading, you can do this, or the other way around. Maybe, you're a reader and you haven't seen some of these movies and you can check some of them out. So yeah, I have 4. I'm going to go through them and we are going to discuss them. All right, so the first book on my list is Final Girls by Riley Sager. I absolutely love this book. I love really all of Riley Sager's books. But Final Girls is his first one, and I decided to recommend this one just because it is his first one, and it's more of that slasher vibe. Some of the movies that I thought of that are comparable to Final Girls are movies like Scream or Cabin in the Woods, but really any kind of slasher out there very much has that vibe of, teenagers getting picked off by like a masked killer or some sort of psycho killer. So this one is really good. It's following basically this girl who survived a massacre when she was a teenager, and now we're following her more in present day when she's like an adult and she's dealing with some of the ramifications of that. I don't want to say too much just because I don't want to give a whole ton away, just because I think it's fun to go in kind of not knowing much and just seeing where the story takes you. And yeah, like I said, I really like Final Girls. I really like Riley Sager, and I think this one is the perfect slasher thriller vibe that you have going on. It's all right. Book 2 that I have on my list is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Now, full disclosure, this was not my favorite book, but I do think it has that Halloween spooky paranormal vibe. Some of the movies that I thought of that are comparable to this one are movies like The Exorcist, of course, but really Jennifer's Body is one that I think really fits the vibe of this super well. This book does also have its own adaptation on Amazon Prime that was done maybe a year or 2 ago, but the book is following 2 friends who it's set in the 80s, so there's kind of that like satanic panic thing going on. But basically they are partying one night with this group of people, and then one of them seems to be possessed or something of that nature is going on. And it's really a story of friendship, of what would you do for your friends, what are you doing when your friends change, but then also has a lot of broader implications of the world of the 1980s and what it was like maybe growing up there. Now, of course, I didn't. I was born in 1997, so, very far away from the 80s. But I thought that the book itself had a good atmosphere. Some of the issues I had with it overall and why it wasn't like a 4 or 5-star rating for me was just some of the character decisions, and the book has a lot of ups and downs. Like there's a big kind of climactic piece and then there's a bit of a lull after that, which kind of gives you time to settle into the new dynamics, because there's always shifting dynamics, like something is changing and those kind of big pieces. And so that's good, but it kind of makes the story drag a little bit. I thought it was a little too long personally. And I did read some reviews of the movie. I have not seen the movie myself personally, like just full disclosure. But a lot of the reviews were talking about how the movie is very fast-paced and does not give any time for those moments to breathe. So it almost feels like an exact opposite problem of what I had in the book. But yeah, I'm thinking about potentially watching this one this year. I don't know if I'm going to. I don't really know what my Halloween plans are in general or at all. So, we shall see how things proceed. But yeah, that's kind of this one and how I feel about that. All right, the third book on my list is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. I read this one earlier this year in January, and it is a 5 out of 5-star read for me. One of my favorite, if not my favorite book, possibly still of the year. But some of the movies and things that I thought about for this one were more kind of gothic things. So I definitely thought of Rebecca. And even though they don't really have the same plot whatsoever, but a lot of like the old like monster Universal movies, just kind of that gothic like Haunting of Hill House. But a movie that I really thought was like, oh, this is kind of a weird comparison was the Blair Witch Project. And then I was reading on the Plain Bad Heroines Wikipedia page, so I was just kind of refreshing myself, a little bit on the plot details, that Emily M. Danforth herself thought that the book was a mashup of the Blair Witch Project and this another book that I think was called like Hanging Out at a Picnic or something like that. It was like a book, like a gothic book that was released in the 60s, I think. So I was like, oh, I'm not too far off, but Plain Bad Heroines itself is basically told in two separate timelines. There is a 1902 timeline where you have two young girls who are at this boarding school and they're obsessed, with Mary McLean, who was a real life person, and she is very much looked as like a kind of feminist, sapphic author icon, I guess. And then the present day storyline is talking about these actresses who are going to be starring in a movie adaptation of these two girls from the 1902 storyline, and they're going back to the boarding house that they lived in and kind of reliving their story and just getting used to being there, and they're filming there on the set, and it's like a real life set, and it's very much spooky, kind of paranormal-ish, but definitely more of that gothic vibe. And even though this is really long, it's like over 600 pages, it is really good. There's never a dull moment. There's always changing character dynamics that keep you invested and interested, and the plot itself being split into the two timelines means for a really kind of fascinating read and such a dichotomy when you're reading. And I just absolutely love this. I was really blown away. It was such a surprise. I thought I was going to like it, but how much I did actually love it was such a surprise, and I'm so happy that I read this, and it's definitely a book I'm trying to push on as many people as I can nowadays. All right, and the fourth book that I have for you is a nonfiction, and it's one of my favorites of all time. So it's I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, which is about the Golden State Killer, which now has been caught, and the person who is the Golden State Killer who did these crimes has been arrested. Back when this book was written and eventually published, that had not happened yet. So the book is very much an investigation book. Michelle McNamara did actually pass away before the book was finished, so I think she got like maybe 60 to 70% of the way through the book, and then the back half of the book is finished by other sets of authors who kind of took her notes and put together the end. As far as the movie, I personally am a huge fan of Zodiac by David Fincher, and obviously this is such a good comparison. It just, I don't know, Zodiac is one of my favorite movies. It's, not exactly the same. Zodiac is more of a, not fictionalized, but it's a dramatized version of real events, obviously. So there's still like a plot, and the acting is really good in my opinion. Whereas I'll Be Gone in the Dark is obviously more of just like an investigative type novel. Now there is also an HBO documentary that was made from this book, also called I'll Be Gone in the Dark, which I did watch, and I thought it was good. It very much is just rehashing what the book has to say. There's not a whole lot of new information brought to light, except for the end, where they did discuss who the killer actually was, because the documentary, I think, was initially made in maybe 2019 or 2020, and then in 2021 they did like an extension piece of it after it came out who was arrested for the crime. So once again, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, one of my favorite books. I read it back in like 2018 or 2019, I can't remember. I listened to it as an audiobook. Fantastic audiobook, definitely a little spooky-ish, just with, the brutality of some of these crimes, and the Golden State Killer broke into people's homes late at night, and before that he was known as the East Area Rapist. And so if you are sensitive to that kind of material, maybe don't read this one. It is, a true crime, and I know a lot of people have issues with true crime and all of that stuff, and I'm not really here to get into that discussion right now. But personally, I think that this book was a really well done account of this particular person who was committing crimes. So yeah. All right, and those are the 4 books that I wanted to talk about. So just kind of a quick video here today. Definitely let me know if you've read any of these and what some of your spooky season, Halloween season book recommendations are for the end of the year here. I don't know if I'm going to be reading anything super spooky or horror. I don't have anything like that lined up over my next couple of weeks that I plan on picking up, but maybe I'll find a quick book that I can listen to as an audiobook or something just to kind of be in that Halloween mood-ish. But that is all. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will talk to you next time. But until then, have a good rest of your day and have fun reading.